For those of you watching later, this is one of our semi-regular, unscheduled live streams. So while we're waiting for people to get here, I set up and get my cigar lit. So that's why you're seeing all this weirdness. Now, what you have to ask yourself is, why are you seeing all this weirdness? Well, it's because you've made poor life choices. Do better. Be better. Hey, Supreme Leader Clyde, how you doing? Mark, good evening, sir. Mark, we want your opinion on our new Pope. We're hoping you guys did better this time. Okay, our topic this evening, as soon as we get some more people here, is women will. I promise you they will. Wait till I get this this thing lit. It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary. And the sweetest girl I know. So long, Piccadilly. So long, Leicester Square. It's a long way to Tipperary, but my heart's still there. Jazz hands. Okay, right. Women will. I promise you. Hey, Denier, how are you, sir? That is funny. I sing about Piccadilly and Leicester Square, and Aidenier pops up. Haven't heard hide nor hair out of Aidenier in forever, and suddenly he's here for Piccadilly and Leicester Square. I should sing British songs more often, if you can call that British. Hey, Tim. I'm doing good, Aidenier. If the new Pope called for a crusade to take back the Holy Land, would you support it? I don't think I can go. I don't think I'm in communion. It's a shame because I'm a great guy, and they'd love having me on the trip. I'm entertaining. I'm pretty good in a scrap. I can sing songs about Piccadilly. But oh well. Mark's like, yep, next flight. Okay, so you've probably heard about revealed preference. Supreme Leader, this is a second. Hasdrubal is on too. Hokey smokes. I was just singing Long Way to Tipperary, and one of our UK friends popped up who I hadn't seen in a while, and then the very next thing that happens, you pop up. That's pretty funny. I got to sing that song more often. You've probably heard about revealed preferences versus stated preference, right? Hey, Hasdrubal's mom is from Tipperary. But is it a long way to Tipperary? That's the question, Hasdrubal. Is it a long way to Tipperary? Where was I? Oh, revealed preference versus stated preference. you all know what this is. Revealed preference is what your actions show you prefer, and stated preference is what your words say you prefer. Someone asked about the cigar. I smoke seconds, so I get these in blocks of 20. They're from the Dominican Republic, but they don't really have a, uh, a name brand per se. It's $40 for a block of 20 cigars, so it's a $2 cigar basically. It's more like 40, tax or whatever. It's like 39.99 plus tax. So it ends up being like $2.20 a cigar, and they're very very enjoyable. I Cigars are like wine or whiskey or anything like that. There's so much of it. It's impossible to like experience it all and know what you like. And so I just decided at one point that I'm only going to smoke Dominican, cigars from the Dominican Republic, and darker colored cigars, and just go from there. And so I found these at my local. We've got a liquor store uptown that has a humidor, in a real humidor, a limited small humidor, but a real humidor. Uh, uh, and they have these blocks of these seconds, is what I've always heard them called. And allegedly they're just cigars that didn't meet some standard for a lot of cigars are made kind of by standard manufacturers, and they get branded by different companies, but they're all kind of made in the same place. And these allegedly just didn't meet the standard to be branded by whatever company was going to brand them, whatever they were going to brand them. So they just get sold without a name brand. And I can't tell a difference. They're enjoyable. I like them. So this is my $2 cigar. Yeah, $5 to $7 you can get a decent cigar. The ones, the reason why I smoke Dominican Republic cigars is because like the very first cigar I ever, I'm so shallow. My brother was trying to pull me out of a funk, and he was trying to do everything he could to get me to live again. Uh, and so he kept throwing different life experiences at me, trying to get me to participate. And he wanted me to start smoking cigars with him. Uh, and I didn't like. I decided I didn't want any like cigars with Hispanic sounding names, not because of any reason other than it's just like they all had Hispanic sounding names and they sounded stupid to me, you know. And so I didn't want any cigars with a weird like floral design on the band. And there was this one cigar called Onyx that had a kind of an understated cigar band. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try that cigar. It was like the first cigar I ever smoked. Yeah, I had it. Hey, he's a very good brother, Mark, and I loved it. It was a great cigar. It was my favorite. It was the Onyx Reserve Number Four. I haven't seen them in a while. I don't think they make them anymore. But it was a dark Dominican Republic cigar, and so ever since then, I've only smoked dark Dominican Republic cigars. Is that because they suit my taste? Probably not. I am highly skeptical that the very first cigar I ever tried. Yeah, has they're doing well. We had it's been a long time since we've talked to you. I don't know what all you've missed. We had a new baby back in January, so that's number 16. He's fat and happy and healthy. Uh, we were very blessed. He's a Down syndrome child who has Down syndrome, and so we've been learning about all that. And uh, I'm not just like playing the glad game. It sounds like it's a blessing. It sounds like that it's going to be a very special child, and he's already, he's very happy and smiley, and yeah, it's already been very, very cool. So that's our big news as we've sort of been adjusting to that and learning him and what he needs because it is different, not much different. Hey, black hole, but it is different. You can say he kind of processes things a little different, and so uh, the things that he responds to. and gets really kind of fixated on seem to be different than the things the other kids have responded to and fixated on. Uh, so he's been a lot of fun. And then we've got another grandbaby on the way. That'll be the fifth grandbaby. Uh, Never be married to me. Oh, a woman will never be married to me. I got you, Black Hole. That's cute. I like that. Well done, clever. A woman will never be married to me. Is that because you're unmarriageable, or just because that don't want to ever be married? Ah. So yeah, we got the fifth grandbaby coming in September. The fourth just turned a year old. Not that long ago. I don't remember when he turned a year. Maybe he didn't turn a year yet. Maybe he's about to turn a year. I don't know. They all start running together at some point. I remember their names, and that's pretty good. Actually, my daughter might be on in a little while. She normally pops in on these, and if she does, we'll try to find out when the new baby turns one. But anyway, so yeah, we're doing well. Things are going well. We're not doing a garden this year. It looks like, just because we got a late start. Uh, just because Black Hole just doesn't want to be married. Life's hard enough, and I won't have kids either. You know, I've lived life both ways. I've been married twice, and I've been single, not for very long, but I've been single. Uh, I've never really not had kids though. I had my first baby at 23, I think, was when my oldest daughter was born. So I don't really know what it's like to live without kids, because I was in the Marine Corps. I graduated high school and joined the Marine Corps, and I got married while I was in the Marine Corps, and my first daughter was born while I was in the Marine Corps. So I've never really lived without kids. So I don't know what that's like. But I never wanted to live without kids. I had picked out the names for my first two kids when I was like 15. I just always knew that I was going to be a father and that I wanted to be a father, and it wasn't even a question in my mind. Uh, you watch the TV shows and everything, and it's like, I'm gonna be a daddy, and the guy passes out or something. That was never me. I was just like always, and and not because I didn't care, but because there just was no question. I remember when my first wife told me she was pregnant very early in our marriage. We'd only been married like two or 3 months when she told me she was pregnant. I was like, oh, awesome, that's good. Congratulations, I'm happy. Um, and when my daughter was born, I was like, all right, good job. Well, but it was never like overwhelming or this sense of, you know, oh, uh, uh, like awe, or I couldn't. Hey, good evening, Twin Arrows. It was just always assumed. I just always knew. There was no question in my mind. I was going to be a father, and that was going to be the. Damn, we lost a lot of people at that. No one likes this topic. We'll get to women will in just a minute, because women will. Women will. So, anywho, so I don't. When people tell me they don't want to. Thank you, Twin Arrows. We are doing well. So when people tell me they don't want to get married, I kind of get it, because my first marriage ended up in a disaster, and I had a relationship in between the two marriages that I thought was going to be a marriage, and kind of ended up in a disaster. Uh, yeah, your parents, well, would have been very disappointed. Uh, so I get it, but I can't imagine not having kids. I just can't imagine not being a father. It's too wrapped up in who I am. It's pretty much my entire identity. Uh, and what would I now? I'm not saying this is for everybody. If Black Hole's still with us, I'm assuming he's one of the ones we lost. Uh, 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 I'm not saying that if you don't have children, you can't have a meaningful, impactful life. I mean, the Apostle Paul never had children. George Washington never had children. We could look at a lot of really impactful men with meaningful lives who didn't have children. But I would not have had a meaningful life had I not had children. I'm not the Apostle Paul. I am not going to lead the revolution and found the nation, although I wish I would. So if it wasn't for children, I would have left no impact on this world. So I can't imagine not having children. Okay, let's get back to something someone's going to listen to, though, because we're, Adenir is 18 years married and 5 years divorced. Has it been 5 years since you were over here, Adenir? Because I feel like you were still married when you. I think Mark is being a little sarcastic. Yeah, no, I wish, I mean, I started at 23, and I wish I'd have started earlier because, what would it have saved me to have one less, or two less? Shalom, Landon. How you doing, sir? Yeah, I would love to have. Oh, when we met, you were single. Okay, for some reason, I thought you were still married when we met. How long ago was that? When was it you were over here? That must have been at least 3 years ago now, I reckon. Time flies. Anywho, so revealed preference versus stated preference. We all have a stated preference for freedom, but most of our revealed preferences are. Haz has been together for 20 years. He's got an 18-year-old. Twin Arrows was married once. Ex-wife committed suicide not too long ago. Left me with 2 kids. I have a new fiance. I'm just scared to get married again because it didn't work out that great last time. Yeah, Mark started 9 months after prom. Well done, sir. Well done. Hey, Twin Arrows, that's that's a hard thing. Of course, you have a fiance, so that means you kind of agree to get married. But I can understand your trepidation. Oh, I appreciate that, Twin Arrows. Thank you, sir. It's good to know that we had some impact. I love it that Mark had his first child 9 months after prom. What is it? Was it in Ecclesiastes where it says, "I have been young and now I am old, but there are 3 things I don't understand: the track of the lizard across the rock, the flight of the eagle through the sky, and the way of of a man with the maid." Don met his wife in 86. Don met his wife at 86 and got married at 93. No. There's a Catholic school prom, too. Them nuns fell down on the job that night, huh, Mark? Met in 86, got married in 93. So 7 years later. Still going. 93. So, let's see, 95 to now is 30 years. So you've been married 32 years. That's pretty impressive. We need to get you to do a live stream and give us the secret. We just had our anniversary on Memorial Day. They served alcohol. Of course they did. It was Catholic. My brother married a Catholic girl, and they got married in a Knights of Columbus hall, and it was one of the wildest parties I've ever been to. Where was I? Oh, we just had our anniversary on. Don's been quite all right. 32 years, yeah. You're going to have a lot of life in 32 years of marriage, no matter what. Our anniversary was Memorial. We got married on Memorial Day. It helps me remember it a little bit. It doesn't land on Memorial Day every year, but I know if Memorial Day is coming up, my anniversary is coming up. But we don't make a big deal out of any day like that. Birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day. We make a big deal out of Veterans Day and Marine Corps birthday. 5 kids, 7 grandkids, married 35 years. Mr. Pack, well done, sir. So we got 2 men in the 30 club. Uh, our Twin Arrows ex-wife had mental health issues, committed suicide long after they were divorced. Still, for a mother to leave her children behind like that is that's a hard thing. You want to say a lot about that, and probably shouldn't in a public setting. That's a hard thing to put on a child, for both ways, a mother or a father. You hear about it more with fathers, but anywho, we have lost down to 4 people. This is sad. I am clearly failing. So I guess we better start talking about guns or something. Now we're down to 2 people? That can't be right. There's got to be something wrong with the viewer counter. I've never seen that before. Okay, revealed preference versus stated preference. We all have a stated preference for freedom. But most of us have a revealed preference for, yeah, it can't be right. More people than that are commenting. Most of us have a revealed preference for comfort, though. And me too. I'm not wagging any. The mead. God, you go back, Don. Yeah, no, the mead. I haven't made mead in a while because the honey is so expensive. Victor Maxwell, 4 children, 7 grandchildren, 29 years married. We got a bunch of old farts in here who've been married for a while. I'm just at 14 years. The mead, I really enjoyed the mead. The mead was really good most of the time. I did it very, very unscientifically. I just dumped a gallon of honey in a 5-gallon bucket and filled it the rest of the way with water. And covered it with a cloth and let it go, and I just tasted it until I thought it was ready. About a third of the time it turned to vinegar, and a third of the time it turned into really, really, really good mead. And a third of the time we drank it before it even got done turning, because honey water actually tastes really, really good. It tasted a lot like, even before it fermented, it tasted a lot like cream soda. So, you would just end up drinking it, and it would never get turned to mead. So about a third of the time, hey, Patrick E's here. Good evening, sir. About a third of the time, you would get really good mead. A third of the time, you would get a vinegar, and a third of the time, you drank it before it ever fermented. But the price of honey just shot way up, and I haven't made it since. I should make another batch. But I have a buddy here local who was really into brewing for a while, and he was just incredibly insulted by my technique. And he came over here and tried to set me up with a real thing and a fermentation lock and the whole 9 yards and a sacrometer, and he really wanted me to do it right. And it took all the fun out of it. It just wasn't fun anymore after that. And that was the last time I did it. Plus the price of honey. The price of honey just got ridiculous. I think it's $80 for a gallon of honey now. And I can't afford to pay. When you figure you only got the mead a third of the time, so you're actually, a $240 gallon of mead is just, that's too rich for my blood. But I should do it again because it was really good and I liked it. And when it worked really, really well. And you would be hard pressed to convince me it wasn't healthy. I think any kind of fermentation. Thanks, Twin. Any kind of home fermentation, I think, is healthy. So Mariah makes us it's called kombucha, which I always thought was stupid until I found out it's just sweet tea that's fermented. The numbers always lie. Twin Arrows, I don't know if we have a moderator here or not. If you want to post a link to the channel, you're more than welcome to, but it might not go through. It might have to be approved by a moderator. And I don't think we have any moderators in the chat. And I don't think I can assign a moderator from here. I'm on my phone. So you're more than welcome to post a link to your channel. If it doesn't go through, it's not because I didn't let it go through. It's just because I don't have anyone to approve the link for me. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, she makes this fermented sweet tea, and then she makes this fermented lemonade that's really, really good. And if you mix the fermented lemonade in with regular sweet tea, you got a fantastic drink. And then she does a home version of sauerkraut, and I despise sauerkraut. I can't take the smell of it. But her sauerkraut doesn't have a smell, and we can say, oh yeah, that's right. There's no moderator. You can say whatever you want. Ha! Talk about working without a net here, huh? We got to watch Patrick. Those Canadians, they'll say anything. And her homemade sauerkraut fixed a terrible gut issue I was having. Like I had to go to the doctor first time I'd gone to the doctor in my adult life outside of the Marine Corps sending me, because I got this gut issue that was not fixable, and went to the urgent care. It wasn't a doctor, and they gave me antibiotics, and that like tamped it down, but it didn't go away till I started eating her home fermented sauerkraut, and it cleared it right up. So I'm a big fan of home fermentation. Victor lives in Alaska, and his wife makes great moonshine. I've thought about building a still. I've got most of the stuff to build a still. The only thing I don't have is a soldering iron. And I probably don't even really need a soldering iron, but it seems like, it would help. And I've got I've got an old pressure cooker set aside. I was going to make a 1 gallon still. And of course, I get copper tubing all the time. Or copper tubing's cheap anyway. So I have thought about just trying to make a really simple, easy still out of that pressure cooker. But you know what? That was in my shed that collapsed, and God knows what kind of shape it's in now. Or if it's even, the parts might have gotten separated. Who knows? But I'm sure I could find a pressure cooker somewhere cheap. I could probably find an old pressure canner somewhere cheap too. And convert that and have a bigger still. Yeah. But I don't really drink that much. I lost my taste for most alcohol probably 2 or 3 years ago. I still enjoy a beer every now and again, and every once in a while I'll sip on a little bit of whiskey. In fact, I've got a bottle of Maker's Mark up there on the shelf. If I thought about it, I'd have brought myself out a little glass and sipped on the Maker's Mark. But I'm not really a big drinker anymore. I was never a big drinker to begin with. Okay, revealed preference versus stated preference. You might keep being interesting. Revealed preference versus stated preference. So the revealed preference is what you show through your actions that you prefer. Got a gift of poteen the other day from a neighbor. Irish Shine. I've never heard it called poteen. I'd be interested to know the etymology of that word, Hasdrubal. Why poteen? Of course, why moonshine? I know why moonshine is, because you would make it at night under the light of the moon, so you didn't get caught. I wonder, is moonshine an Irish term? I feel like I feel like there's one of those old Irish drinking songs that says moonshine in there. I bet that's an old Irish term. Oh, pronounced putchteen. Putcheen? tell you a story. Was in the Mediterranean back when I was in the Marine Corps, and we were doing this big training op. Putchine, okay. We were doing this big training op with the NATO forces. Uh, yeah, the dogs out there barking at leaves. We did this big giant NATO training op. This would have been like 1997, 1998. And you know who Steve Brown is? You remind me of him. His channel is gone for some reason. I think he just. I'm not familiar with Steve Brown, Blackhole. So yeah, that's it. If moonshine don't kill me, I'll live till I die. Oh moonshine, oh how I love thee. You killed me, old father, and now you'll kill me. Bless all moonshiners and bless all moonshine. Their breath smells as sweet as the fruit on the vine. I love those old. I don't know how Irish they really are. It might be, you know, that fake American Irish that we all love so much over here, but I still love it. Old Hal Roach and was that the comedian? There was an Irish comedian. This was back in like the 60s. This was a long time ago. I think his name was Hal Roach. But Hal Roach might have been one of the singers. No, the Clancy brothers were the singers. There was the Clancy brothers, and then I think Hal Roach was an old Irish comedian a long time ago, back in the 1960s. And he was hysterical. Anywho. Costanza. I heard a story from an old coworker. When he was in Desert Shield, they would take fruit from their MREs and try to make alcohol from it. Yeah. Yeah, no, they would absolutely. Or what you would do is you would go over and find the Italians, and the Italians had an incredibly strong wine in their MREs. Like they got a daily ration of wine. It came in these clear plastic packets. It looked like soy sauce. It looked like a soy sauce packet that you'd get at like a Chinese takeout. But there would be wine, and they had a lunch wine and a dinner wine in their MREs. They would get their MRE was one. They get one MRE for the whole day, and they would have there were 3 boxes in there, one for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And lunch and dinner both came with packets of wine. So you would go find the Italians and trade them for their wine. But anyway, so we did this big training op with a bunch of the NATO troops. And we spent a lot of time with the British Royal Marines. And of course, the American Marine Corps got this thing about British Royal Marines. And the British Royal Marines think we're a little silly, but they put up with it. They treat us like kid brothers or something. And our battalion commander at the end of the op, he wanted to host a barbecue and invite the Royal Marine. I can't remember how big they're. God, those guys can drink. I mean, look, American Marines are no slouches when it comes to drinking, but the British Royal Marines are scary. I mean, those guys, I don't know how they have livers. Their whole goal was to get banned from ports. Like they would go into port and like our goal is to get thrown out of this port and banned from coming back. Oh, cool. Victor's grandfather used to make, a great grandfather used to make moonshine in Arkansas. Anywho, be that as it may, our battalion commander wanted to throw a barbecue and invite the British Royal Marines over. But no one told the Royal Marines that we were doing this. So we had this huge barbecue, all this pork ribs, and the Royal Marines weren't coming over. So I was like, well, I'll just go. So I walked over and started inviting all the Royal Marines. Hey, y'all come over. We've got a barbecue for you. And I walked up to this one guy and I was like, hey, you know, we've got a barbecue. We'd like you guys to come share in our barbecue. And he looks at me and he makes eye contact and he goes, "Hey, the bar, we timorless mousy." And I went, "What?" And he did it again. And it was just this. I mean, I didn't understand a single word. And I'm like, "What?" Because the guy looked, yeah, he looked as British could be. I mean, this was not like some French Foreign Legion troop here or something. Uh, and he said it again, the exact same, like a little slower or something. Uh, and I looked to the guy over there and I said, I'm sorry, I don't. And the guy says, "Oh, don't worry, he's Scottish. None of us know what he says either." And the guy gets all angry and he starts, and he climbs up in the truck and slams the door. And he refused to come over to our barbecue. To this day, it's the only Scotsman I know for sure I've ever met. Uh, but if they all talk like that, I would know if I'd met another one because I did not understand a single word, not one. And I don't think he was putting me on. I just think that was how he talked. I was like, "Damn, brother! I thought TV was ruining all of our regional dialects, but that boy, he was still steeped in it." Uh, Anywho, I don't remember why I got off on that, uh, except that it's one of my favorite stories. Are we still talking about revealed preference versus stated preference? Okay, so we all have our stated preferences. Like we all state that we want to live free. And most of our revealed preferences that we want to live comfortable, as do I. I have a very nice life. I have not yet taken up arms to throw off a sea of troubles. I have not opposed a sea of troubles with my bare bodkin. Uh, uh, cool points, whoever can identify that little reference. Some of you should be able to. Mhm. All right, let's see. Who would Fartles bear? Who would Fartles bear? Who that, but with a bare bodkin could end them if it weren't for what dreams may come. What dreams may come. I don't know. Somebody will have the answer. Don't look it up. Don't Google it. See if you can come up with it. I'll hell Google it. I don't care. Uh, isn't that from Braveheart? Almost. I can promise you it is Shakespeare, Mark. Uh, it is Shakespeare, but what Shakespeare? It's you just got to guess. Once you know it's Shakespeare, just pick uh, the most famous bit of line from Shakespeare that everybody knows, and you got it. Has Drupal dug deep? Think ignorant American, most well known Shakespeare. I forgot you guys over there actually. He's like one of you guys, and so you actually know a little bit about him. But no, no. Think American Hillbilly. What's the one line from Shakespeare that an American hillbilly is gonna know? I'll wait. Do 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 do. Julius Caesar. You guys are going deep. No, it's the to be or not to be speech from no, Shakespeare was English. I guess that was before the United Kingdom, huh? To be or not to be. It's from the to be or not to be speech. Yeah, Hamlet. To be or not to be? That is the question. Who would what to be or not to be? That is the question. Whether to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or by a sea of troubles oppose them to something to sleep, to dream, perchance to dream. There's the rub for who would Fartles bear if. Yeah, look it up. It's really cool. You read the Law of Eight. I don't know that one. It's a really cool speech when you read it, and actually, like you got to obviously the language is rough, and so we've got to sit down and kind of dig through it a little bit, or I had to dig through it. But when you kind of sit down with it and dig through it, it's a really interesting speech. I mean, it's the most famous one for a reason. Um, oh, I see, Costanza. Uh, but yeah, he's talking about how yeah, if it wasn't for the fear of an afterlife, which who wouldn't just take up arms and and try to overthrow all their problems through violence. But because there might be an afterlife, it makes cowards of us all. Uh, and he's sort of a. We should do Shakespeare for Men. That would be an interesting live stream. I wonder why I've never thought about that, because I'm not very smart. Shakespeare for Men, because Shakespeare was a manly guy. Uh, uh, and he dealt with oh, movie. Yeah, you're right, Costanza. The Postman was a good movie. I'm sorry. It bombed at the box office, but I thought it was an excellent movie. Yeah, it got a little uh, melodramatic at times, but I'm here for the melodrama. I like melodrama. I like the Postman. But yeah, Shakespeare was a manly guy, and he was dealing with sort of issues that uh, men would connect with. A lot of questions about action versus inaction. The value of perseverance versus the value of proactive. The murder rate in London was like 25%. Yikes! uh, that was an interesting time in. Oh, Jocko Willink has a yeah the Henry V speech. That would be the St. Crispin's Day speech. You're all familiar with the St. Crispin's Day. Yes, very, very, very masculine. Uh, Shucks, I'm not going to remember most of it, except that men who are now safe in their bed will count themselves a curse because they weren't here to fight beside you us on this St. Crispin's Day. Uh, uh, no, a facet. Crap. Oh, that's going to taste terrible. He was a closet. Who was a closet? Is that Closet Case? Uh, uh, Great speech. Great speech. Uh, oh, he was secretly Catholic. Who was secretly Catholic, Mark? Because I mean, we get this from Catholics a lot that everyone was secretly Catholic. Uh, Anyone who ever wrote something valuable, we're told, was secretly Catholic, including C.S. Lewis. Uh, it's a little bit like the. You know what I heard about Shakespeare, and it's an interesting little conspiracy theory, is that he actually helped with the King James Bible. Uh, or the corollary conspiracy theory is that the main guy who is credited with the King James Bible was actually Shakespeare and actually wrote Shakespeare's plays. But there's a couple of different conspiracy theories that link Shakespeare to the King James Bible, which uh, I enjoy because I like the King James. It's for public reading. I don't do my studying out of it, but for public reading, like the gravitas and sort of the beauty and the lyricism of the King James. Everyone sort of respects it. So it makes me happy to think that Shakespeare might have had something to do with the I won't say translation, although I think there was translation, but the majority of the King James Bible was based on the was it Wycliffe? I think it was Wycliffe. There was an underground English translation that came out before the authorized version, and I think they really based a lot of King James on that previous English translation. And I think it was the Wycliffe Bible, but I may have that wrong. Uh, but it's an interesting period in world history, but especially in English history. and I guess by extension, all of British history. Uh, it's this changeover from Queen Elizabeth. We're getting into the Stuarts uh, with James the First, and just a very very interesting time. I've spent a lot of time recently listening to a couple of podcasts kind of focused on the time. One's the English History podcast by David Crowther. I'm not sure. And then the other one is the British History podcast by an American guy who's actually a little bit of a twit, but he's a good storyteller, unfortunately. But the British History podcast hasn't gotten there yet. But Crowder at the English History podcast has just done a. I mean, he just spent 2 years on the English Revolution or the Civil Wars. I guess it's the one that ends up with uh, 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 Charles the First being beheaded. So I guess it's you could call it the English Civil War or the English Revolution. I'm not sure. I think right now they prefer to call it the Civil War. Uh, Maybe some of our UK members here could tell us. Aiden here, Aiden, if you're still in the chat, that sounds like that's your area. But yeah, Shakespeare kind of he gets started right at the end of Elizabeth the First reign, and he goes through James the First reign, and I can't remember when he died, like 1627 or something. I don't know, somewhere in there. Uh, and the printing press is getting invented, and things are getting really weird in the world, and and the Tudors. You just came out of Henry VIII and all that, and yeah, uh, uh, Mary, Bloody Mary, uh, kind of, in my oh so humble opinion, I have a theory. I have a theory of history. I believe there are periods in which the history for the next several hundred years is set in place, and like you'll get these really influential moments, and that everything that flows from those moments for a while is kind of set in stone. And I say the reign of Mary, I can't remember what she was, but we call her Bloody Mary. She wasn't that bloody. I know, Mark. But she was bloodier than her sister and her brother, but not as bloody as her father. Uh, and they just call her Bloody Mary. And I don't know else. I mean, I don't know how else how to signify her. If I could remember what her uh, epithet was, she Mary the First, or I don't know. Let's call her Mary Tudor for Mark's sake. We'll call her Mary Tudor. Uh, so you all know this story, but it's a really interesting story, and it's no, Elizabeth was. It depends on how you measure these things, Mark. Mary had a lot more people burned at the stake for heresy, and Mary also had a much shorter reign. You want to call her Mary, Queen of Scots? We can. No, 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 no. That's a different Mary, Mark. Mary, Queen of Scots, was the mother of James the First. Mary, Queen of Scots, was the cousin of Elizabeth the First, but she was a different Mary. Elizabeth ended up having to have Mary, Queen of Scots, uh, executed for treason. But that's a common mistake. A lot of people, because they lived at the same time, and they both factored heavily into Elizabeth the First life and reign, and so they frequently get conflated. But so Mary Tudor is the first child, first daughter of Henry VIII, with his first daughter, with his first wife. Was it Catherine? I can't remember Henry VIII's first wife. Aid, I need help. What was Henry VIII's first wife's name? I think it was Catherine. Catherine of Aragon. She was Spanish. She was a Spanish Catholic, uh, and Catherine. Okay, thank you, Has. Yeah, the first wife was Catherine of Aragon, and she was Mark. She was an excellent queen. She was also devoutly Catholic. She was devoutly Catholic, and she was a really, really, really good queen. In fact, one of the main military triumphs of Henry VIII's reign was that I can't remember what he was off doing, but there was some uprising in the north. Probably Haz's ancestors were getting froggy again. And she actually led this military. She was a figurehead, I'm sure, but she like led this military expedition to the north and sort of defended the realm. And she was an excellent queen, and very a very upright woman, and very cognizant of her role, and sounded like she was a good, solid, quality woman. Uh, and no, but that's Scottish. I'm Irish. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry, but you got to admit there's some crossover there. Uh, Not completely separate people groups. Uh, so, anywho, so Catherine of Aragon is a really good queen, but she's not. I'd never call you Canadian. I apologize, Has. I apologize. You are correct. Uh, Although I'd call a Canadian American. Let's not go there. Uh, uh, well, at this point, Mark, Henry VIII was a really good Catholic. Remember, he opposed the Reformation. He wrote a refutation, or a response to leave us alone, to Luther. He wrote a scholarly paper, sort of, not sort of, expressly refuting Luther, and it was fairly well received. And his main advisor at the time, yes, it's my island. Uh, that was a great character. His main advisor at the time was a guy named Thomas More, who ended up being sainted, a Catholic saint, much, much later. Who was a virulent Catholic humanist and intellectual, and that's one of my problems with Catholicism, is that you can be a Catholic humanist, but anyway, we won't go into all that. Now, Henry does end up beheading Thomas More. That's why he was martyred by Henry VIII, because when Henry left the Catholic Church, Thomas resisted, and he resisted pretty good. So that's why he ends up being sainted much, much later. It was hundreds of years later that they sainted him. I didn't. Was Defender of the Faith bestowed by the Pope? I thought he bestowed that on himself, but I could be mistaken. Hey, Ant Jack, how you doing, sir? Anywho, Henry decides he needs a son, and Catherine's not giving him a son. She just had this one daughter, Mary, and Henry wants a son. Now, Henry has a son. He had an illegitimate son, or at least a son out of wedlock with a mistress. Okay, so the Pope made him Defender of the Faith, and the boy's name was Henry Fitzroy. And this isn't conspiracy theory. This is like acknowledged. And so he'd had a son, so he knew he could have a son. But Catherine wasn't giving him a son. Now, I don't know why he didn't just a great Judas Priest album. That's awesome. I don't know why he didn't fight to legitimate the boy. I don't know why. It seems like that would have been much simpler than what he did do. But he decides he's got to divorce his wife. so he can marry someone else, so he can have a legitimate son, so he can have a male heir. And he was doing all kinds of gyrations and gymnastics and stuff to try to solve this problem. He actually did look into legitimating his son, Henry Fitzroy. Fitzroy just means son of the king. He wasn't even hiding the ball on that one. Including, he looks into polygamy. He actually like writes the Pope and says, "Hey, can I just be polygamous like like King David or somebody and have two wives?" And the Pope was like, "No, no, no, we can't have that." Uh, and so he ends up uh, leaving the Catholic Church, and he takes England out of the Catholic Church, and pretty violently. Once he decided this was a thing they were going to do, he went all in. Now he tried to kind of stay Catholic adjacent. He didn't throw away too much of the theology. He kind of just replaced the Pope with himself. He had some advisors who tried to make some other changes, but he really didn't want to deviate too much from the faith he knew. He just wanted himself to be the head of the church so he could grant himself a divorce. And then he marries Anne Boleyn. You've all heard this story. This is how it all comes together. We're coming back around. And so he marries Anne Boleyn, and Anne Boleyn has a daughter named Elizabeth. So here's our stage is almost set now. Look, Haz is going to get his divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. The 6 wives of Henry VIII. So he divorces Catherine and sends her into exile. And he was really a shit to her. I mean, really a shit to her. Because he was trying to get her to, hey, good evening, engineered to succeed. We're glad you're here, sir. He was trying to get her to divorce him. I don't know. She was refusing to agree to the divorce, and he was really a shit to this good loyal wife, straight up. Ends up, kind of exiling her to this little cottage out in the middle of nowhere, no servants. He didn't let her have access to her daughter Mary, and was really he was actually pretty much a shit to Mary too. He kind of exiles Mary, not to the same extent, but he kind of he doesn't he sends her away, and he doesn't want her at court, and he doesn't have a whole lot to do with her, and he doesn't let her communicate with her mother, and really really warps the poor girl. She was not mentally okay. She had some problems, as evidenced later in her life. But Henry had some problems. He was, like I said, he was a shit. Anne doesn't give him a son. Anne never has a son. And so he decides Anne's cheating on him. So he convicts her for adultery and beheads her. I don't remember all the wives. He kills Anne. He ends up marrying at some point a lady named Jane, and I think Jane finally gives him a son, but Jane dies right away. As soon as she's born this son, she dies. Sorry, this thing is not working well. But the son's name is Edward. And all is well with the world. Everything is right. Now, if you've ever heard the story of The Prince and the Pauper, and you have, because it's been turned into like a dozen different Disney cartoons. Mickey Mouse did A Prince and the Pauper. It's a total fictional story. It was written by Mark Twain, long after the fact. But that's actually written about Prince Edward, Henry VIII's son. And Henry VIII factors in the story. It's the king who didn't who get VD? Henry VIII? I don't think so. he was known to have like two or three mistresses in his life, but he actually didn't. He wasn't known to be that prolific with his affairs. For a king, I mean, considering how many affairs he could have had. Anywho, so he's got three kids. He's got Mary, who's significantly older than both Elizabeth, who's significantly older than Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is substantially older than Edward. And Henry dies while Edward's still pretty young. And Edward is like, everyone's excited about Edward. He's supposed to be smart. He's good looking. He's supposed to be really, really religious. He's a dedicated Protestant. His mother's family. So he was raised by his uncle after his mother died, and his mother's families were pretty staunch Protestants, and it seems like they were pretty sincere Protestants. Like Anne Boleyn's family was Protestant as well, but they were not very religious people, based off the actions of her brother and her sister, and her mother. But anywho, Henry dies, Edward takes over. It's going to be a golden age. Everyone's ecstatic. And like, Edward dies almost right away, gets sick and dies. He's like 16. He's very, very young. He might have made it to 20 or something, but he dies as an incredibly young man. And all of the, I swear, this all ties in. Promise, stick with me for a minute. There's a reason why we're doing this. And so now we've got us an honest to God crisis, because we've got two daughters, no son, one daughter. Mary is a let me say this without putting my bias in it. Oh yeah, so well, let's touch on that for a second, Mark, because it matters. So when Henry VIII decides to take England out of the Catholic Church, he goes whole hog, man. I mean, he bans priests. He disbanded all the convents and all the monasteries. He confiscated all the property. He like went through and destroyed all the statues, because a bunch of Protestants got in control, and there had been this back and forth. England had always had a strong, let's say this, England had always had a weak connection to Rome, to the Roman Church. When Britain was first evangelized, it was evangelized out of Ireland, and it was was it Celtic? Anyway, so this is pre-Anglo. Is this pre-Anglo-Saxon? No, this is the Anglo-Saxons. So the Britons, the pre-Anglo-Saxon Britons were connected to Rome. The Anglo-Saxons come in and they take over what we think of as England, and they're pagans, and they get evangelized a little bit from the Franks, but the main push comes out of Ireland, and so they initially, a lot of them get converted into this non-Roman version of Christianity. And then the Romans come in, through the Franks, and Rome kind of becomes ascendant. But of all the Northern Europeans, the English were the least Romanized, or they were the least entwined with the Catholic Church, because of that Irish influence. Which is funny, because Ireland goes the other way. So there was a pretty strong contingent of anti-Roman Christians in England, and as soon as Henry VIII has to replace all of his Catholic advisors with Protestant advisors, you get some uh, that too. That happened a second time, has or maybe that is the same time. I don't remember. You'd know better than I would. It's your history. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be. But yeah, no, Ireland has a couple times has kind of pulled Northern Europe's bacon out of the fire, uh, fat out of the fire. Uh, and these guys go nuts because they know this is their one shot. If you're going to shoot a bear, you better kill it. And these guys decide they are going to kill this bear, and so they go on this. That might have even been the Cromwell, not Oliver Cromwell, but Thomas Cromwell, possibly. I don't remember. And they go nuts. And also, there's money to be had too, because there's a lot of money in these monasteries. So man, they destroy all the monasteries. They burn them to the ground. They destroy all the statues. They end up burning a lot of libraries. A lot of books got lost, and the priests are banned, and any priest that get caught in England, get killed. And there's this whole underground Catholic church going on, and even to this day, you'll find secret rooms in older English houses that used to be where the priest would hide out, or where they would keep the altars and the host and all that, and uh, the Eucharist. And the Protestants are ascendant, man, and they burned all the churches or burned all the monasteries and all the convents, and took over all the cathedrals, and booyah. Henry VIII didn't do anything by half measures. Anyway, so there is this internal war going on in England, and all of this comes out. This is why I'm talking about all this. This is all. We're all going to come back to Shakespeare. I swear to God, we're coming back to Shakespeare, and then we're coming back to Women Will. All this is going to tie in. Uh, so we come to this point. Edward's dead. There's no male heir. He died before he had a male heir. He was likely going to marry this young woman named, I believe, Jane Grey, who was a lot like him. She was this, like, everyone was excited about her. She was brilliant. She was beautiful. She was strongly Protestant. Everyone thought that Edward and Jane were going to get married, and they were going to be this golden couple that were going to lead England into this utopian age. Even though Utopia was Catholic, I'll give you that one, Mark. Utopia was Catholic, written by the aforementioned Thomas More. And Edward dies. Dun dun dun. What's gonna happen? So you've got this Catholic daughter, and you've got this Protestant daughter. Now they're both daughters, but you've also got these two factions inside the country. There's still a strong Catholic faction. I shouldn't say most, a lot of the aristocracy was Catholic, or Catholic sympathizers, and a lot of the coming up. Good night, Supreme Leader. Thank you for sticking with us. Appreciate you calling us a great stream. I know this is a little weird. A lot of the mercantile class, there was sort of an emerging middle class. A lot of the London merchants and the shopkeepers and the apprentices and all these guys were Protestant. The Protestants were much more of a middle lower class movement, and the Catholics were more centered around the aristocracy. And so these two sides are in a low key civil war. I mean, straight up low key civil war. And who the heir is going to be is going to dictate whether or not the country goes Catholic, or whether it goes Protestant, or stays Protestant, or returns to Catholicism. Yeah, we'll get to the taming of the shrew, because that will absolutely factor into all of this. This is going to be a comprehensive, unified theory of masculinity through the lens of the English Revolution, as expressed through Shakespeare, who didn't see the English Revolution. But my thesis here is that the English Revolution is founded at this moment, but the English Revolution leads directly to the American Revolution. You do not have the American Revolution without the English Revolution. Absolutely. It's even some of the same families. Like a lot of the families who were involved in the English Revolution end up in America involved in the American Revolution. It's crazy. You get some of the same names and stuff. If you don't have the American Revolution, you don't have the French Revolution. And if you don't have the French Revolution, you don't have Napoleon. And if you don't have Napoleon, you don't have German unification. And if you don't have German unification, you don't have World War I or World War II, and you probably don't have the Russian Revolution. The whole world is different if this period we're talking about with Mary Tudor doesn't happen. If Mary Tudor doesn't happen, the entire modern world, the whole history of the modern world, because the modern world starts, you can argue about where modernity starts. Most people are going to say the printing press. The whole history of the modern world is set in motion in this moment where England has to choose between Elizabeth I and Mary Tudor. I don't remember how Mary wins. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I do remember how Mary wins. So this Protestant noble is looking at this and saying, oh, no. And he stages a coup. I can't remember the guy's name. But he goes and he kidnaps Lady Jane Grey because she has a claim to the throne. She has probably not as good a claim as Mary and Elizabeth, but Jane also has a claim to the throne. So what this nobleman does is he goes and he kidnaps Lady Jane and he forces her to marry his son. And then he declares Jane queen, and he's waiting, and that makes his son the consort to the queen, and his plan is just to rule through them. But in the meantime, some people go down and get Mary Tudor, and they have a counter coup, and they come back and they win the battle. I can't remember what happened, how it worked out, but the nobleman who'd kidnapped Lady Jane Grey loses, and the people who'd gone and gotten Mary won, and Elizabeth hid out the whole time. She didn't get involved in this at all. She just stayed. She had some little country estate, and she stayed and didn't get involved. So Mary's faction wins this little tiny civil war, and they make her queen. Now she's violently Catholic. She hates the Protestants, because she thinks, and rightfully so, she's not wrong, that they wronged her mother so badly. Her mother was wrong. And Mary is just enthralled with the Spanish. She loves the Spanish. That's where her mother came from. Everything about her mother is perfect and wonderful. And she goes and marries the Spanish heir. And I want to say he was the heir to the Holy. I think his dad was the Holy Roman Emperor at the time, if I remember correctly, but I might be making that up. But she marries this Spanish prince who's going to be the pretty much the head of Europe once his dad dies. And he kind of comes over, and Mary's just wildly in love with this guy. And the English are all like, "Oh, wait." Anyway, the reason why the English Civil War is rooted at this moment is because these nobles are all freaked out by this Spanish guy, this Spanish consort. And they're scared to death that Mary is going to give all their positions and their lands to Spanish Catholics. And they're not wrong. She almost absolutely would have, because she was just enthralled with this guy. Just head over heels in love. She was a really decent woman, like her mom. She should have never been queen. She was a terrible queen, but she was a good woman, and she just wanted to be married, and she wanted to have kids. and her dad wouldn't let her get married for a long time, so she was older when she finally did get a chance to get married, and her mental health was just not there. She kept thinking she was pregnant, and she thought she was pregnant for years on end. She would be 18 months, 2 years into a pregnancy, and because she wanted to be pregnant so bad, she would have these false pregnancies in her head. And her husband just didn't care about her. I mean, he wasn't mean to her, but he just thought she was a little silly. She was a little older. He was he was like the cross between a celebrity and royalty. I mean, he was the top of the game, his game. He thought England was kind of a backwards little soggy place, and he thought Mary was a little frumpy and beneath him and whatnot, and he got called off to go fight a war, and he never sees her again. She's writing him letters every day, and he writes her once every 6 months, and uh, she dies. But that's not what's important. What's important is that this is a Magna Carta moment. We won't go all into Magna Carta. Uh, Magna Carta is fascinating too, but this is another Magna Carta moment because all these English nobles were so scared that Mary was going to give all their titles and their land and their power to the Spanish nobles who came over with Philip. His name was Philip, Prince Philip. Uh, 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 that they put all these guardrails in place and they strengthened Parliament against the monarchy. Uh, and Mary ends up, I don't want to say delegitimizing, but Mary kind of delegitimizes the monarchy a little bit in England. And she sends into exile all these Protestants. And there's a guy named John Ponnet, Ponet. And John Ponnet was you never hear about him. He wasn't important to anybody or anything. But he gets exiled like a lot of these because Mary goes on a little bit of a killing spree. She starts burning a lot of people at the stake as heretics, which is something that the Catholic Church has never explained. What is the biblical authority for burning people for anything, let alone for heresy? The biblical death penalty is stoning. There's nothing in there about burning people. The only example we have of someone burning someone is the pagan who tried to burn Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But anywho, let's not be petty. We love our friend Mark dearly, and as much as I love this Catholic Protestant fight, just like I love the Ford Chevy fight, we don't want to be rude. I've got a bully pulpit. I don't want to be a bully. Mary goes on something of a house cleaning project. Let's say that. And so a lot of these Protestants run off to the Netherlands because the Netherlands have gone. I think it's the Netherlands have gone Protestant, and John Ponnet is this kind of like mid-level functionary who runs off to the Netherlands, and he writes this tract. It's not a very long tract. It's like 5 chapters. I've tried to read it. I haven't been able to get through the whole thing. But John Ponnet writes the first, I believe, first in history, intellectual defense for revolution and for overthrowing a government. And in my opinion, John Ponnet is one of the most significant men in history. Now, he dies in obscurity, in exile, not long after he writes this tract. The tract does get cited and quoted in both the English Revolution and the American Revolution, as those intellectuals and those movements are sort of justifying what they're doing. They do reference, sort of as footnotes, John Ponnet in his tract. But this seed gets sown in this moment where for the first time someone says, no, there is a moral, I think he said a moral like obligation or duty to overthrow a government that is not representative of its people. His stance was that Mary and Catholicism was not representative of the English people, and that it was she was illegitimate and her government was illegitimate, and therefore it was not only moral but maybe necessary to overthrow her and her government. This is this is groundbreaking stuff. This is the idea, the thought. This is the moment where the English Revolution, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, uh, uh, this is the moment, in my opinion, where uh, the world changes. Uh, this idea gets put out there by John Ponnet, and it instantly. Oh, we lost so many people. This is my least popular live stream I've ever done. I've never had this few people on a live stream. Uh, and this is one of my favorite ideas. So I appreciate those of you who are staying here and listening to me blather on about this, because I know it's not our normal fare. Let me light this again. But so we come out of Mary's reign having had this idea floated that the government should represent the people and that the people have a right to overthrow the government if it doesn't. We have a monarchy defanged and delegitimized a little bit by Mary, and by the nobility. The nobility is the one who does it, because they take a lot of her power. They tell her no a bunch, and she's already a little delegitimate because she's a queen. She's one of the first queens in Europe. There have been a few other queens, but not many, and she really tried to be a very proactive queen, and she fails. It was her mission. She was determined that she was going to bring England back into the Catholic faith, firmly back into the Catholic faith. And she doesn't succeed. I mean, she does make England officially Catholic for a while. The country is reconciled to Rome briefly for her reign, but it doesn't stick because she dies. She doesn't have any children, and Elizabeth gets made queen, and Elizabeth is Protestant. And so there's this whole other, it flips the other way now. Now, Elizabeth didn't go on the killing spree that Mary went on. I think I'm pulling these numbers from memory, and someone can look it up if you're interested and put it in the chat. I want to say Mary burned like 300 heretics or 500 heretics. I can't remember. She burned several hundred, but really, by the standards of the day, she wasn't crazy as far as her numbers go. Elizabeth comes in, Elizabeth burns like 30, and they're mostly Catholic priests who were trying to kill her, allegedly. That's the story we get now. But I'm a Protestant, and so, or at least Protestant adjacent. So I might be, just parroting my side's propaganda. But now we swing all back the other way. Plus, we have another queen. The monarchy is delegitimized a whole another bit, because now the Catholic nobility are wanting to protect themselves from this new Protestant monarch, and this is the phase where Parliament becomes, I won't say ascendant, but incredibly powerful. Up to this point, Parliament wasn't much of an impediment to anybody. But with these two queens, Parliament was kind of constantly opposing Mary, because there were a lot of Protestants in Parliament, and this is where the aristocracy was trying to protect themselves from the Spanish interlopers, And so Parliament was sort of the center of being uh, an anchor on Mary, and then Elizabeth comes into power, and she uses Parliament to achieve her ends. Now Elizabeth is a very powerful, very influential queen. She's one of the great queens in history. Very, very effective ruler, but she rules through Parliament, and she completely legitimizes Parliament. Uh, and at the end of Elizabeth's reign, it's not possible to rule England without Parliament, uh, and that leads directly to the English Revolution. It is the constant warfare between Parliament and James the First and James the Second, more so James the Second than James the First. But it is that warfare that literally becomes the English Revolution. It is the war between King Charles the First and his parliaments that is the English Revolution, and all of that gets started and set in motion with the rise of Mary Tudor uh, and John Ponnet and his anti-government tract. So now, how does this apply to Shakespeare? So Shakespeare comes, is born and alive right at the end of Elizabeth's reign. Uh, and so you got this all this stuff with the damn printing press. You've got this Protestant Reformation that's been going on. Luther hasn't been dead that long. He's been dead for a little while, but not like crazy long. And you've had this nation of hairy barbarians, because remember, the Anglo-Saxons were Vikings. The Vikings were the people the Anglo-Saxons left behind. Anglo-Saxons come from the same place the Vikings came from. The Vikings were just like the sissies that the Anglo-Saxons didn't take with them when they left and went to England. The Anglo-Saxons were just hairy barbarians, and these hairy barbarians had been ruled by Frenchmen for a few hundred years. Although the Frenchmen they've been ruled by were actually just Vikings too. The Normandy was just a bunch of Norsemen. Anyway, we could be here for a long time if we went through all this. But William the Conqueror was a descendant of Rollo the Viking. So anywho, they've been ruled by women now for like 50 years or 60 years. I can't remember what it was. Elizabeth reigned for a really long time. She had like a 40-year reign, 30-year reign. I don't remember. Mary didn't have a crazy long reign, but I feel like she was somewhere close to 10 years. And they've been ruled by women for 10 years, and Frenchmen before that for a couple hundred years. And they're having this crisis of masculinity. Not to the same extent we're having a crisis of masculinity, but when you read Shakespeare's plays, a lot of them are about this tension between men and women. So like Hamlet is the main conflict in Hamlet. I might be going a little bit on a limb here, and if I am, I apologize. I will retract this statement. I'm not willing to die on this hill. But the main conflict in Hamlet is between Hamlet and his mother. Uh, you would think it would be uh, uh, between Hamlet and his uncle. I believe his uncle. I can't remember what his uncle's name was. But for those of you who don't know, the main conflict in Hamlet is that Hamlet's father has died. His mother married his uncle, his father's brother, and his father's brother becomes king. And Hamlet's father's ghost comes to him and says, "Hey, my brother is actually the one who murdered me, and you have to avenge me." But it's Hamlet's mother who has made really the uncle king. It was by marrying the queen that the uncle was kind of able to take over. And Hamlet should have been king. Hamlet was the male heir, and he was young, but Hamlet should have been king, but his mother's marrying of his uncle made his uncle's claim stronger, even though kind of illegitimate. Uh, and so that's how the uncle becomes king. And so Hamlet's conflict is with his queen, his mother queen. Uh, and you don't have to squint real hard or turn your head real far to the right to see echoes of this issue with these two female queens who have delegitimized the monarchy in the eyes of the maybe of Shakespeare. Now I'm reading all of this in. I mean, all of this I'm reading into it. So like someone who knows Shakespeare and Hamlet and English history better is probably laughing at me right now. But I think you see this sort of tension, especially like in Hamlet, where the queen is the bad guy, or she's at least the misguided weakling who has. I don't want to go that far, but she has been complicit in the misleading of her country, and you even see something similar in Macbeth. So, in Macbeth, it's Lady Macbeth who actually kills the Scottish king, who I want to say was Malcolm, but you can actually say that any Scottish king was Malcolm, and you're probably going to be right, because like they were all named Malcolm back then. I know the king that replaces Macbeth is Malcolm too. But it's Lady Macbeth who kills the king and makes Macbeth the king of Scotland. And that's another famous speech, where you've heard that out damn spot. That's Lady Macbeth looking at her hands, and she thinks she still has the king's blood on her hands, and she can't get the blood off her hands, and that's why she's saying out damn spot. The spot of blood she wants to scrub from her hands. This is also a theme in King Lear. I don't like King Lear, but I saw a really bad production of it that was awful. So maybe it's just that I saw a bad King Lear. But in King Lear, you have this good king who has 3 daughters and no sons, and he splits up his kingdom between his 3 daughters, and 2 of the daughters marry idiots and go to war with each other and end up killing King Lear and killing he had one good daughter. And it's the same thing where these queens destroy this country, in this case, explicitly through their bad marriages. So you can actually draw a really kind of straight line from them back to Mary, even though Mary's marriage didn't destroy the country. At the time, a lot of the English were very, very worried that it would. They were very, very scared of Philip and the Spanish. You even see it in Midsummer Night Dream. I actually performed in a community theater production of Midsummer Night Dream where I played Oberon, the Fairy King. Yes, you can all laugh. Yes, I played the Fairy King. I was very good at it in the role. Where you've got this fairy queen who's angry at her husband, and she just throws. Now it's a comedy; it's not a tragedy. The others were Lear, King Lear, Hamlet, and Macbeth are all 3 tragedies. Midsummer Night Dream is a comedy, so it's much lower stakes, much less, blood and death. But the whole no, I shouldn't say whole, but one of the main conflicts in Midsummer's Night Dream is that the fairy queen gets mad at her husband, the fairy king, Oberon, who's very manly, especially as played by me. Don't let that fairy thing distract you. Yes, I was very good as the fairy king, ETS. Yeah, I know. And she gets mad at the fairy king, and she ends up, in the end, she ends up being enchanted to fall in love with this commoner whose head's been turned into the head of an ass. So there's this commoner who's, I think his name is Bottom even, who falls asleep in the forest, and some fairy plays a joke on him, and they turn his head into the head of an ass. No, I was a much younger man, Mark. I would have been about 25 when I had 20, somewhere between 25 and 27. I couldn't grow a beard at that point. I couldn't grow a beard until my mid 30s for some reason. And so the queen ends up getting enchanted to fall in love with this commoner with the head of the ass, and she throws the whole forest into turmoil with this. She's just enthralled with him. She's had some like eye drop. I can't remember what happened. There were the. It's funny. It's a good story. You should definitely, if you can put up with the language and wade through it, and you get a good production, it's definitely worth looking at. But once again, the queen, she doesn't end up marrying the guy with the jackass. We'll just call him the jackass. She doesn't end up marrying the jackass, but she's absolutely in love with the jackass, and she's making all of her servants and all the other fairies serve the jackass. Appreciate that, Mike. Sometimes I think it's just bizarre, and you guys watch because it's like a train wreck. Like, what is this guy about to say next? So you get this theme again of this kingdom being led astray by this queen who is deceived, and she ends up throwing the whole kingdom into turmoil. Now, there's also strong female characters in Shakespeare. There's no doubt. Juliet, I actually performed in the same. I played Juliet. No, I'm kidding. But that same troupe, we did Romeo and Juliet, and I played Romeo, and I was a terrible Romeo. I was the worst Romeo ever. It was awful. It was like John Wayne. It's like, well, waha, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east. I was awful. I was the terrible Romeo. But the real Romeo, the production was so bad, the guy who was cast as Romeo dropped out. I'm not making this up, man. This is honest. He dropped out by faking brain cancer. He told the director that he had brain cancer and couldn't play the role. And I didn't know the kid. And like the first night of the performance, they said, "Oh, hey, the guy who was going to play Romeo is in the audience. He's okay. He doesn't have brain cancer." And they told me where he was sitting, and like it was one of the fight scenes, and one of the fight, we really did the fight scenes up good. The fight scenes were great. And in one of the fight scenes, I got like knocked down, and I'm laying on the ground, and I'm looking up. It was a outdoor theater, and so we were doing the fight scene at the I can't remember what that's called, but we were on the same level with the audience. And I'm laying on the ground, and I look up, and it's him, and I'm like, oh my God, he is Romeo. This guy looked just, I mean, like you could have imagined a more picture perfect Romeo. He was total metrosexual. He had this curly, floppy hair. He was beautiful in that effeminate way that, like, a sissy guy would be. Anyway, Juliet, if you actually look at the story of Romeo and Juliet, Juliet's a really admirable character. She's the hero of the whole thing. The tragedy is that Juliet dies. And there's other strong female characters in Shakespeare. The Comedy of Errors has a good female lead. The Merchant of Venice has a really good female lead. Much Ado About Nothing. So it's not like Shakespeare just hated women, although Much Ado About Nothing is an absolute battle of the sexes. It is also a play on this same theme. And then we get, and Mark had brought this up, we get Taming of the Shrew. Damn it, I did it again. Shit. So, my first date with Mariah, Uh, I won't tell you this whole story. It's a good story, but neither Mariah and I would you have recognized when we met. You would not have recognized either one of us. And she was playing around with being a feminist, and I was playing around with being a libertine, and we were both being pretty successful at it. Uh, uh, and my brother, the one who got me into cigars, ooh, uh, was incredibly successful with the ladies. He was just women loved him and threw themselves at him all the time. And so he had this date with this one, and he didn't like any of them. He was not. He's married now. He's got three daughters. He's got a beautiful, wonderful wife that my whole family loves. But at the time, he didn't care about none of them because they were throwing themselves at his feet, and he just didn't respect them. But there was this one girl he was interested in, and he asked her out, and they were going to go down to Atlanta to the Atlanta Shakespeare Tavern, and they were going to see a production of Taming of the Shrew. And if you know the story about the Taming of the Shrew, there's this guy in it's in Italy, but I can't remember what city in Italy it's set in, and he has three daughters, and two of them are are just regular old daughters who desperately want to get married, but the oldest one is this psychotic feminist, angry, violent, hates men, any man that tries to marry her. She's real pretty. Her father's rich. She should be married, but she just hates men, uh, and runs them all off and screams at them all. And her sisters hate her because her sisters want to get married, but they can't get married until she gets married because she's the oldest. And her father doesn't know what the hell to do. And this crazy guy comes and looks at her and he's like, he's wanting a fortune. He doesn't really care about the woman all that much. He wants the money. And he goes to her father and says, "Oh yeah, I'll marry her." And the father's like, "Take her, fine, here, go." And the whole story is about how he tames this woman. Uh, it is it is complete anti-feminist. It's glorious. If if you ever wanted to just cheer for the man, you watch or read The Taming of the Shrew. This guy is a genius. He's just it's total male fantasy, and he does it, man. He tames this woman. He tames her for real. She becomes the model wife, and she has this glorious speech at the end of the thing, where her sisters end up getting married too. But she's like, "What's?" And these are the sisters who were all acting like they were the good, submissive, obedient, and sisters. And at the end of the thing, she's like yelling at her sisters, "You're such terrible wives. How dare you treat your husband so badly? You have to learn how to." Oh, it's great. It's beautiful. So, so Shakespeare's all about this crisis of masculinity and resolving it, and sort of reconciling I think, the last 50 years of being ruled by queens. Uh, and he's sort of reflecting the national angst about the roles of men and women because they've been completely turned on their head for 50 years as far as the early modern mind was. It was really a medieval mind still. uh, so Shakespeare is very, very relevant for us today. uh, and especially when you read, like, okay, the Henry V, the Saints Crispin's Day speech, uh, some of the comedies that came out of that, the Merry Wives of Windsor, uh, and some of the others. Yeah, this is a little aside. I'm going to go on this aside. I despise, I despise The Tempest. I think The Tempest is one of the dumbest things ever performed. And I don't think Shakespeare wrote it. I think it was attributed to him later. I think it was a like an anthology of some little tidbits here and there that he might have written, that some people cobbled together because it is incoherent. I mean, it's just stupid, 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 stupid. Uh, but anywho, that's an aside. But this conflict between men and women and headship and the roles of men relative to the roles of women is present throughout all his plays. And it's one of the reasons why they're so great, because this is the foundational relationship of the human experience. Everything everything boils down to the sexual uh, dimorphism and the interplay between men and women. Everything. That's why if you've got a story and there's not a hero who wins a girl, I mean that's the story. The hero who wins the girl. All great stories boils down to that. Uh, Even like you wouldn't think that Lord of the Rings is that, but there is a lot of that in there. Aragorn does get uh, whatever the elf chick's name was, uh, Eowyn, one of the Oromir boys, whichever one that lives, does end up with the Rohan chick. You do the hero for the story to be great, to be classic, to be timeless. The hero has to win the girl. Uh, and sometimes the hero has to overcome the woman. Sometimes the woman is the obstacle uh, or the battlefield, which brings us back to our original topic. This is not how I envisioned this conversation going, man, but it is very cool that it worked out this way. I don't know which one of you launched us off into this, but thank you. Women will. And what women will do is that I believe, writ large, women will conform to the revealed preferences of men. They will not conform to our stated preferences. They will conform to our revealed preferences. What is it that we show them through our actions that we value? If you spend your money on the internet at midnight, you're revealing your preference for a certain kind of woman. If you expend your energy chasing hoochie mamas with, and we're going to deal with stereotypes here. If you spend your energy chasing hoochie mamas with collagen lips and breast implants, then the women who are around you are going to see your revealed preference, and they are going to conform to that. Hey, Jack. If your revealed preference is for women to deal with problems so that you can sit in your man cave and watch sports, Jack is 34 and never been in a relationship. Huh. That is not that uncommon anymore, Jack. Okay, so you've only ever been considered a friend. Stop being their friend. See, okay, this is going to be an aside. The red pill guys, I'm not red pill, and I think a lot of the red pill movement is misguided, but their observations are correct. All right? Women don't like the nice guy. Okay, you quit being their friend, but you've never quit being the nice guy. Because you've ingested the lie, and I'm assuming this, Jack. I don't know you. So if this isn't you, I apologize. But generally, when I run into men like who tell me the things you just told me, so I'm generalizing and I'm stereotyping, and I don't know you. And if this isn't you, I'm sorry. Discard everything I'm about to say. But generally, when I run into young men who tell me that, they believe the lie that if they're the nice guy, that they will be rewarded for that. That if they treat women like equals, if they listen to all the stuff, that women will value them, and women will want to be with them because you will be a good husband and you will treat them kindly. Uh, and that is not what women want. Women don't want the nice guy. Women want three things in a man. They want a man who can gather and retain resources. That doesn't mean they want money. And by the way, this is an admirable thing for them to want. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. The fact that women want a man who can gather and retain resources shows wisdom and judgment. And a woman who does not value that in a man is not a woman worth having. Women want men who can form allyships, men who can form relationships with other men that strengthen them as allies. And women want dangerous men. If you can acquire and retain is the important part here. Acquire and retain resources. If you can acquire other men as allies, and if you are dangerous, you will get a woman. If you want one, I promise you. Now, it might not be the woman it might not be like your fantasy girl. You might have to say, oh, I'm a 4. I got to stop chasing these 6s. Costanza. You might need to change your standards a little bit. But if you can do those three, Jack is an attorney with no debt and a paid off house. I can't be a dangerous man because it's not a good idea for me to jeopardize my license. If I had to guess, Jack, not knowing you, by the way, congratulations on being an attorney and having a paid off house. That's impressive. You've definitely got number 1 down. It sounds that last statement there, and I'm not blaming you, Jack. I'm not blaming you. I am not trashing you. Oh, well, that part's true. Jack says, I think they will either like you or they don't. That part is 100% true. I can't be a dangerous man. My guess is going to be your problem is right there in that statement. I didn't say you should be a foolish man or an unwise man. I didn't say you should be a violent man or an unpredictable man. But women should be able to look at you and say, oh, that guy could be dangerous. So the statement I love is in C.S. Lewis, as with most things. And it's at the end of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I know it's a children's book, right? Why are we talking about a children's book? But at the end of the book, Aslan, and I don't think I have to tell the story here. I think most of you are familiar with this story. But Aslan, the lion, is leaving. And the little girl, Lucy, is like, oh, where is he going? And when will he come back? I don't remember the exact conversation, but she ends up saying something about, well, he's a good lion, isn't he? And Tumnus, the fawn, says he is a good lion, but he's not a tame lion. Right? So I think you're, I think you're conflating some things that shouldn't be conflated, Jack. You don't have to be a raging, like I said, unpredictable, violent asshole. You have to start finding, let's put it this way, you have to find a confidence in your own physicality. Look, everyone can get their asses kicked by someone. I'm 6 foot tall, I'm 200 pounds, I'm a Marine. I have a certain level of physicality, probably above average level of physicality from most men. But there are absolutely a ton of men out there. Okay, so yeah, okay, here we are, Jack. There are a ton of men out there that are over 6 foot tall who can kick my ass. My physicality is not absolute. My physicality is not dominant. I I don't have to be the most dangerous man. Uh, I have to be a dangerous man. And that doesn't mean I have to act out that danger. That means I have to be capable of being dangerous. Uh, it sounds to me, and like I said, I don't know you, but my guess is that you, maybe because of your height and some of the disadvantages it's put you at over your life, that you have an overly pessimistic view. Well, there comes a point, Jack, when money does. I mean, money can buy you a lot. uh, Money and fame. You don't have that kind of money. You have to develop a confidence in your physicality that can be expressed in your bearing, how you carry yourself. A woman has to be able to look at you and say, "Oh, that guy will take the bullet for me." Because at the end of the day, vis-a-vis your woman, the only thing you really owe her is to take the bullet. You know, if someone's got to take the bullet, you got to take the bullet. There might not be a bullet, but if there ever were to be a bullet, she has to feel like you would be standing in front of her when that bullet hits. And if I had to guess, and that's all this is a guess, that you probably don't express that confidence. Costanza's got a pretty good sense of humor about all this. Costanza, the average height for men worldwide is 5'7". The average height for an American man is 5'9". The average height for a man worldwide is 5'7". So even being 5'6" is, now obviously you're an attorney in America, so I mean you're dealing with a bunch of 5'9" guys. You're only 3 inches shorter than average. You're actually not that small. And I think Joe Rogan is 5'6". I don't like the term macho. I know someone said it kind of jokingly. That might have been Mark. I don't like the term macho. It almost isn't even macho. It's just self-sacrificial. Do you express a level of confidence that would let a woman have confidence that you would take the bullet? His wife is 4'7". Would you take the bullet? If it came down to a physical fight, if someone, if you were out with your girlfriend at 11 o'clock at night and the guy pulled the knife and said, "I'm taking the girl, are you going to jump on the knife?" That's what it is. And you don't have to be 6'5". So this is the other part. And Jack, tell me if you're MGTOW or not. How can I have confidence with women if women have never given me the opportunity to grow in confidence with women? So you don't want to have confidence with women. You want to have confidence with men. Confidence with women is, look, they don't care if you're good with women because they're women and they're good with women. That's not giving them what they need. That sounds gay. Maybe. I mean, sure, if you think it sounds gay, that's fine. But you should be looking to gain, I don't know what happened to that dog, the respect of other men. You should be doing things that earn the admiration of other men. And you should be looking for your confidence in how you interact with men. And that will come through with the women. This goes back to being able to form the allies with other men. Women want access. So the woman approaches the world. There's this interesting woman called Teal Swan who's wrong about almost everything, but she's right about this. Women approach the world always from a place of fear. How could this hurt me, and how could I protect myself from it? uh, and what you can offer her is an assurance that you will fight the bear while she runs away. I don't know how else to say it like that. She doesn't necessarily care that you can beat the bear. What she cares about is, can you help her get away from the bear? And that is also a yeah. Here Has is saying it too. Uh, that is also not a bad thing. That is admirable, because that woman, her whole body and her whole psyche was designed to protect and rear children. And if she survives, it's highly likely that her children survive. Even if she can't articulate that, that is the subconscious biological motivator of most of a woman's decisions. Will this protect my womb? And will this allow me to protect my children? Uh, that is healthy. That is good. That should not be sneered at or looked down upon. I know it could seem a little selfish, but it's actually not. It's focused on that child or her potential child, and you should absolutely feed into that, and you should want a woman who wants that. And this is where I think the MGTOW and the red pill guys go bad, because they twist all that to say, oh, all women are gold diggers and they just want money. And that's not true. They don't want just money. They want security and safety and an environment where they can raise their children. Uh, I'm a misanthrope. And I think any man who can offer a woman that will be able to find a woman. But okay, so here we are. We're back to revealed preference versus stated preference. So many men are trying to give women their stated preferences. Women are saying, "Oh, we want, feminist men. We want caring men. We want emotionally available men. We want, men who'll treat us as equals." And those are all stated preferences, and they're all bullshit. Those are bullshit. Just like all these men out there are saying, "Oh, we want loyal women. We want, homemakers," and they're giving all their money to OnlyFans girls. What's their revealed preference is for men who can give them safety and security. One of the things that attracted Mariah to me, Jack, I don't think we've interacted before. You've probably, my wife has been on my channel some, but years ago, not recently. Some of these men have seen her though, and she's all right. She's pretty good. I like her. She brings me some credibility. And I just say that to say that I do have some credibility. One of the things that attracted to her to me originally is that I was loudly telling everyone what my plan was for the apocalypse. And I had a detailed, workable plan for how to survive the apocalypse. And she liked that. uh, uh, and that's instructive. Women value security for them and their children. Can you provide them that security on all those levels? Actually, and don't forget the spiritual level too. But physical security, economic security, and spiritual security, which is a little harder to define. And if you can offer a woman those three things, and you already can offer them one of those things, you can offer financial security. You will absolutely have a woman if you want a woman, and you will probably have a fairly desirable woman. Okay, so that's not, Jack. That's not illegitimate either, though. So yeah, like I said, I do have a level of physicality that's probably above average. And I'm not being arrogant to say that. Like I said, I'm 6 foot. Uh, I'm not like hideously ugly. I was a little better looking back then because I was younger. I was in pretty good shape, but I wasn't like swolled or anything. I just uh, well, let me tell you a little bit about where I was back then, Jack. I was barely employed. I had been a real estate agent when the crash happened in 2007, and I was making a little bit of money at the time. But then the crash happened, and I lost everything. I just had a terrible divorce. I was behind on my child support. I'd lost my driver's license because I was so far behind on my child support, and I was riding a bicycle everywhere. And I was working a second job. I was still trying to work real estate, but I was working a second job as a waiter just to have some money come in and try to, keep the wolves at bay. Uh, so I was not, uh, uh, I was not a catch. Uh, and my wife's a good-looking woman. She had access to good-looking men. Uh, it was not, my looks that drew her to me. Although I'm sure that didn't hurt. There does have to be a sexual attraction. There's no doubt. But you're the same way, Jack. You wouldn't marry a woman you weren't sexually attracted to. So it's not fair to tell these women that they can't have some level of attraction to you as well. Like I said, look, you're 5'6". Uh, uh, maybe you can't date 6'1" supermodels. You know, maybe you've got to ask out a woman who's maybe not, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow type looks, tall and waifishly thin. You don't want that though. Skinny, you don't. Skinny is not good. Fat's not good, but skinny's not good either. You're really going to get right there in the middle. When you hug a woman, you want her to give a little bit. So, so yeah, it's just a little bit of expectation setting, and then find find a way to develop your confidence in your physicality and find a way to be comfortable around men. My guess is that it's not that you're uncomfortable around women. I bet you're actually fairly comfortable around women, and it's men you're uncomfortable around. Because look, men, we have to find our place in the hierarchy, and part of that does is based on physicality. Yes, a guy who's 6'5" is going to have an advantage in finding his place in the pecking order over a guy who's 5'6". There's this you can't. There's no way around it. But a guy who's 5'6" is going to have an advantage over a guy who's 5'4". Uh, you know, a guy who's 6'5" is going to have an advantage over a guy who's 6 foot. All of us are at a physical disadvantage to someone. Yes, you're lower on the physical advantage scale, so you got to compensate. And you know what? You live in a time of guns. Physicality is not that big a deal anymore. Just live in a red state and carry a gun. But yeah, my guess is that you have to find your comfort level and your place in the male hierarchy. Uh, Gwent Paltrow. Uh, and you don't need to be comfortable with women. You need to be comfortable with men. And that's probably where you'll have your breakthrough with the women. Because when you know your place in the hierarchy, when you're comfortable with your place in the hierarchy, when you can form allyships with other men, you give a woman her access to that male hierarchy. She gets the protection of the pack through you. And when you can show her your place in the pack, then she'll know where her place in the pack. Oh, I need to develop that idea. That sounds brilliant. I'll forget this in a minute. I won't write it down. I'll never think about it again until the next time it occurs to me, and I'll think I've been brilliant all over again. But yeah, I bet there's an aspect of this where women are looking for men who have established their place in the male hierarchy, so that woman can then access that same. So there's something in the military you see where the wives of military men like take on their husband's rank, and the wives will actually sort themselves by the husband's rank. Uh, uh, and anyone who's been in the military here has it's a joke, you know. I mean, it's like these women think that they're the staff sergeant, you know, and when they're together, when the women are together, they sort themselves based off their husband's rank, or when if that woman is interacting with a lower ranked service member, you know, she'll treat a private like she's a staff sergeant because her husband's a staff sergeant. Her husband's place in the male hierarchy, uh, uh, you know, spills over onto her somehow. So maybe what you need to do is establish your place in the male hierarchies around you, and then the women around you will want access to that protection and that status. Ooh, this doesn't get talked about. This is brilliant. This is a brilliant idea. Someone needs to work on this idea. I think this answer could answer some questions. You know, this maybe you don't have to be a dangerous man. You have to be a man that other men rely on and who has found his place in in the male pecking order. I like that. I think there's something to that. I need to work on that. Jack, you need to think about this too. You're a lawyer, you're a smart young man. What's your place in the male hierarchy? It sounds like to me that you have avoided the male hierarchy, and you have not tried to compete for a place in it, and so you don't have an access for women. You are not now an access point for women to get the protection of the herd of the pack. Uh, think on that. But yeah, other men. Uh, yeah, ETS is sort of noticed the same thing too. Other men will designate your place in the hierarchy. They're gonna test you a little bit. They're gonna push you a little bit. You're gonna have to throw some elbows and jockey a little bit. You're gonna have to accept, you know, hey, my status may not be all the way at the top. My status might be here, but this is my place in the hierarchy, and I function in that hierarchy. And the man to my left and my right can count on me. Uh, and then I bet some women start looking at you and saying, "Oh, this is my access to the pack. This is how I get protection from the pack." Uh, Costanza says it was his sense of humor. But what that sense of humor probably may have, I should say may have, what that sense of humor may have signaled to your wife is that, oh, so his place in the hierarchy, you know, he can secure his place in the hierarchy through force of personality, through wit, uh, and and so his place in the hierarchy is this. It's secured this way. You know, maybe it's not because he's going to kick everybody's ass, but it's because he's going to. That is also true, Has. I agree 100%. Uh, you definitely want to be you want to maximize your dangerousness. You want to be as dangerous because that gives you a higher place in the hierarchy. The ladies were always looking for access to TRICARE. That is also true. Um, it's just an idea. It just came to me. It may not have any validity at all, but I think it does. I think there's some validity to that. Uh, uh, oh, and Costanza could throw down too. Oh yeah, and humor. humor does show a confidence. Yeah, it takes confidence to crack jokes, uh, because the joke could land poorly, and then someone could get their feelings hurt, and you'll be throwing hands in a heartbeat when you thought you were just. That's happened to me. Yeah, I thought I was just making a harmless joke, and the next thing I know, I've got a damn war on my hands. I hope Jack didn't just bail on us. I hope he took some of that to heart. Because I have a heart for young men. Uh, this is a tough, tough world for young people, period, but especially for young men. They're told so many lies. They're given so many conflicting. Uh, uh, Mark, you're a terrible Catholic. you know, men tend to have sort of straightforward minds. We sort of accept things as they're presented to us, and we're told something that just isn't true these days. Uh, and we have to look for the revealed preference versus the stated preference. This is the main skill going forward, man. In a world with AI and deep fakes, the number one skill going forward is being able to decide what is right and sticking to it no matter what. You know, being able to not look at the surface, to be able to go a little deeper, decide what the truth actually is, and then not waver. I hate to say this, uh, not waver despite the evidence, because evidence can be completely faked. Uh, Most of us do not have the ability to figure out what is real or not. They absolutely can show us photographs. They can say, here is the photographic evidence, and it can be a complete fake, and you can't tell. And they're getting to the point where they can do it with video. They already can do it with voice. They're getting to the point where they can do things in the sky with these drone shows and stuff, uh, that we're not. I talk way too much. That we're not able to discern, or not. I shouldn't say we're not able to discern. That we're not able to verify. Uh, and so we have to be able to decide for ourselves what we're going to believe and not allow any evidence to sway us in those beliefs. There's this fun old musical called Guys and Dolls. Uh, I performed in that one too, but I was just in the chorus. Community theater. And there's this line where this one guy says, this is about gamblers. And he says, because this guy's trying to trick him into this bet. And this gambler says, look, son, my daddy always told me that if a man walks up to you with a brand new deck of cards, a brand new unopened deck of cards, and bets you $10, he can make the jack of spades jump out of that deck, and shoot cider in your ear. As sure as I'm standing here, the jack of spades, you're going to have cider in your ear. Is the joke? Uh, uh, they can just manufacture the evidence, and even they don't even have to manufacture the evidence. They can just make wild claims that we can't verify. Look, if you've ever gone uh, to a jeweler, there's people who don't like that when their jewelry breaks, they're scared to death to take it into the jeweler to get it repaired because they're worried that the jeweler is going to switch out their diamond with a lesser diamond. And they'll never know. A jeweler could put a fake glass diamond in your diamond ring and you would never know. It's not possible for you uh, to tell for yourself if it's a real diamond or not. It's the same thing with mechanics. Most of us can't tell if the mechanic is, do we really need a new engine or do we just need a fuse and a sensor reset? We don't know. We got to trust them. And that our whole world is that way now. Our whole world has to be taken on faith because we can't figure this stuff out for ourselves. We don't know if COVID came from a bat or if it came from a lab, and we can't tell. Uh, we have to trust the messenger. We can't trust the message. Uh, and this is our skill going forward. Can you look at Anthony Fauci and say, "Oh no, that guy's completely full of shit. I don't trust a word he says," and then stick to that no matter what? Uh, that's a hard thing to do when the whole world is telling you one thing, and you have to stand up against the tide and just say, "I don't care," because social ostracization is is one of the things we fear the most, all of us. We're herd animals, and if the herd turns against us, it's death. The herd is the safety of the individual. Uh, I don't know how I got off on all that. Yeah, we can't have faith in any of the evidence we're presented with. Uh, we have to have our core beliefs. They have to be iron hard, and then we just have to say, "I'm sorry, you don't conform to what I've decided is true," and I just have to stand on that. Uh, and the men who can do that uh, are going to be highly valued and leaders. Uh, if you can stand firm despite the evidence, this sounds awful to say, despite the evidence, but evidence isn't evidence anymore. It's like these stupid fucking evolutionists. I used to get, I had to get off Reddit. I loved Reddit. I got off Reddit. I deleted my account. Uh, uh, yeah, but I used to get into these debates with these evolutionists, and they kept saying, "Oh yes, but my evidence. I have evidence. My evidence." And my question was always, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! You don't have evidence. You can't analyze a fossil and tell me that that's what that fossil is. You trust some other guy who wrote it in a book you read." Uh, and even that guy didn't analyze the fossil. You're 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 10 people removed from the guy who's done the science. You're all taking it on faith. You're all reporting things you're not. Hey, ETS, we appreciate you, sir. I do like Marketplace. Marketplace is awesome. There is no such thing as science for the vast majority of us. Don't tell me to trust science. It's not science to me. It's faith. You have faith in something someone told you. You know, a priest in a white lab coat wrote holy words in a book of scripture, but he just called it a textbook, and you've ingested it as a religion. All of us are functioning in religions of some kind or another. There's very, very few of us who can verify the fossil record. I think there's almost none of us who can verify the fossil record because the people who claim to keep coming up with batshit crazy ideas. Anywho, we probably lost Jack a long time ago. Oh well. Maybe he'll think on something. Maybe some of that'll come back to him a little later, and it'll do him some good. Man, I think we are running out of steam. I know we're running out of cigar. We have covered a metric shit ton of ground this evening. We have pioneered ideas. We have plumbed the depth of the human experience. We have examined history. We have discussed literature. We have talked about the fundamental nature of the relationship between men and women. We have gone deep, deep, deep. Hey, Jack, if you're still here, Mark would love to talk to you one-on-one. If you guys shoot me an email, I'll be happy to hook you guys up if you're still with us. The email is therevoltingman@outlook.com. Just put in the subject line, obviously, Mark, but Jack, just put something in your subject line that I'll recognize. Jack Devaney, hook me up with, and I'll be happy to put you guys in contact with each other. Uh, I'm I'm not Catholic, and I'll never be Catholic, but there's certainly far worse things in this world you could be. I fully expect to see my Catholic brothers on the streets of gold. I think they might be a little embarrassed, but you know, we'll all have perfected minds at that point, and we won't be too hard on each other. Hell, I think there might even be some popes there. Sorry, Mark. All right, man. I think we're going to call this one. I much like St. Crispin's Day speech, I feel sorry for the men who weren't here this evening to share this conversation with us. Landon is still here. Dear Lord, he sat through all that. Thank you, Landon. I appreciate the hell out of you. I thought this was a fantastic conversation. But I think we're going to call this one. So my middle son, thank you, Costanza. I don't do them regular. I should. And I was just about to say, my middle son is coming for a visit for 2 weeks, starting this coming Friday. So I highly doubtful we'll have a live stream any of the next 2 weeks for sure. I shouldn't say for sure, but it's doubtful. And then hope that's why I wanted to make sure to get one done tonight. But I didn't think I was going to have anything to talk about tonight. And then you men were like fascinating, which is what always happens. That's why I don't even really pick topics anymore. I just wait for you guys to guide the conversation, and it always ends up somewhere cool. But I'm pretty sure I'll be back in 3 weeks for sure. I shouldn't say for sure, but I'm fairly confident I'll be back in 3 weeks. There's a slight chance we do one of these Saturday nights between now and then, but I'm doubtful. But that's kind of the schedule we've been on for a while. It's been every other week, every 2 weeks, and we get on here and refresh our souls with good conversation with good men. All right, man. We appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good night.